Hey property people, you're not going to want to miss this session. This is with Daniel Domingues. He came to Australia in 2022 with absolutely nothing. He is a migrant to Australia and he's made the bloody most of it. He has a $10 million property portfolio and he's well on his way to get $300,000 of passive income. That is his goal. However, it's not been sunshine and rainbows. He has had challenges along the journey. He's hit serviceability walls. The thing is, he's a PAYG. Like, he's got a full-time job. He doesn't run a business and he doesn't do all this, crazy stuff when you expect to hear these massive portfolios. He has built this property portfolio off the back of a normal job. And in his portfolio, he gives us everything. He shows us the amount he purchased it for, what it's worth now, the ingoings, the outgoings, the cash flow. He reveals all, and you can all learn from something from this guy. Hey everyone, my name's Joe Tucker, and together with Jeff Miles, we created Oz Property Investors, Australia's largest property investment community. And each week we interview top property experts exactly like Daniel, and we unpack their lessons and their expertise live so you don't have to make the same mistakes that they did. Let's jump into this session and learn.
Kind of reminds me what you're talking about there about the opportunity. It's like the Steve McKnight. It's like you buy the problem and not that you solve, but you kind of sell the solution. So that's what I love. But yeah, to the mindset, like, how do you think? How did you get to that?
There is a really good quote, and I'm probably gonna butcher it because I can't remember the word by word. I think it was by Einstein. He said that there is no problem without a solution. You just haven't really thought long enough or hard enough about that problem. And I think that's so true because a lot of people, and probably including myself, like you can get quite emotional and overcome by an issue that you may think is the end of the world, but until you start digging and sort of exploring all the options, it might not be a big deal, and you might end up finding something else that is actually a better way of doing something that you didn't even know was possible. So I really like that angle that, we're going to face challenges every single day. And I think building a portfolio like everyone in this community is doing or trying to do, there is so many challenges. It's not short of challenges, but you just have to be creative. You have to find solutions. You have to talk to people. You have to have a look at what everyone is doing, and you will find a way of move forward.
What you also kind of alluded to is like talking to people and having those conversations. And one of the things I was thinking about in the lead up to this is I wanted to say is, well, which members of the team have been most critical for you in your journey?
Well, that's it, because you came with nothing, right? Like you had to build that team over time.
Yeah. I think the key building the team is definitely something that I think everybody, a lot of people has commented that, and I think one of the key most important people in your team is going to be your broker, and you need to make sure that you have a good broker. So a big shout out to Barry. Thanks, Barry, for all the support over the years.
Barry.
Yeah, I think broker will be your number one type of sort of key people in your team. But you're gonna need. I use buyer's agents pretty much. I started using halfway along the journey, and I pretty much use all the time. It's just that I don't think I have enough time to do all the research that is necessary. And I do like the idea of bouncing back ideas with a person that's on the ground buying properties all the time. So I get a lot of value from just the conversations that I have with the buyer's agents that I deal with. That I think it's worthwhile relationship as well.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my things. How have you seen the portfolio shift from not using a buyer's agent and then using one? How is it have they shaped it a little bit and molded it differently?
I think the key thing, what I noticed with using a buyer's agent is probably velocity to actually transact the deal. When I'm doing myself, it's a little bit of analysis paralysis. Like you start looking, you're looking everywhere, but you're not really focused on getting an outcome. Everything is an opportunity. And I think every time that I engage a buyer's agent, I think within a couple of weeks, 3 weeks tops, we've got a deal landed. So I think I tend to be more focused on looking at whatever has been shortlisted for me, make sure that ticks all my boxes from all the stuff that I have listed as my criteria for investing. And if it does, if it hits all the boxes and the numbers are looking good, make an offer. And if they accept, let's proceed. Yeah. So velocity is definitely one of the key things that I noticed but just the research that you have access to when using buyer's agents and the knowledge of dealing and negotiating, I think I take a lot of value from that as well.
Were they all off-market deals? Were they on-market deals that they brought to you?
A mix of them. So, for example, with the Bonnells Bay was a block of land that was actually on market, but the buyer's agent was quite diligent and actually. I think he went the extra mile on that deal, because I remember he found a block of land that was on a street that actually already had 2 other duplexes, and he could see from the council applications for those duplexes that there was a precedent for the council to accept duplexes. There was the size and the frontage of the lot, everything was sort of within line of those 2. So he said, there is a really good precedent here, so I don't believe the council will knock that back. So, and I think that's what you want on your team, is somebody that can be quite diligent and actually do those checks for you, because I didn't know a lot of those things when I wanted to build a duplex. So the buyer agent actually added a lot of value in that process as well.
Bonnells Bay, which is again on the Central Coast, I believe.
Yeah, Lake Macquarie, in between Central Coast and Newcastle. So I started a trend with the housing Wyong, then we built our house. So I bought so I was going around new properties because I thought that I had sort of figured out a way of making instant equity, and by instance actually building something and getting that valued at a higher amount of money than I actually was spending to go through it. That's a way of creating my manufacturing equity of like people like to say. It's just it is a process, and I enjoy the process of building. I don't think it's for everyone, because there is of course a lot of risk involved in building with finances and everything else, and with the builder itself. But it's a process that I enjoy, and I think it's something that I will continue to do if there is an opportunity to do that. Probably just not now, because the environment now I think is not favorable to build anything. But I will eventually get back to it if I can.
What's the kind of mindset? You've gone heavy duty cash flow with a rooming house. How did that come about?
Well, I got stuck with serviceability because of those 2 purchases. And then when it came during COVID, I started looking into how can I improve serviceability? How can I improve cash flow positive? And that has kind of changed my way of thinking about the portfolio. So I decided my next deal would be something that would have to give me a really good cash flow position. I started researching a lot of different things, and I ended up landing at a rooming house. So I think that sort of ticks all the boxes for me. So let's go and build one. So I ended up purchasing. So I bought a block of land in Darra and commissioned a builder that basically just does rooming houses. And I have 5 self-contained units inside the house. 4 of them are currently renting for $385, and one of them has a little sort of patio, and it rents for an extra $10, so $395.
So one thing I noticed here is there's a hidden sewer line. So how come that wasn't picked up initially? Like what?
It was not on the plan. So builders start building the house. What is this? Like there's a massive manhole in the middle of the block. And if you look at the picture, you can see that the original design, and if you can see this part of the house here, and that yellow bit is where I think that the manhole is. So this part was meant to be all the way to the front where this facade is. So I had to change the design, and so it delayed me like 3-4 months because of that. But it cost me an extra, I don't know, 30 grand. But again, it's just the process of building stuff and overcoming the challenge. But it wasn't on the plan. So like you get the plan, the diagram from the block of land. You can see that there is something running, but there is no manhole on the plan. And then the builders start digging, and there is a manhole, and then you can't build over a manhole.
Now you're going into self-managed super fund. So what made that decision? Was it you that made a decision? Were you forced into that decision?
No, I wasn't forced. So it got to a point that it was getting harder and harder to do anything outside of super. Hitting serviceability, as you know, like it becomes quite hard to actually move and acquire another property. And I still felt that I wanted to continue to invest. And I decided that I could look into self-managed super fund and see what are the options available to me in there. So I started looking into that and decided to dive in. But originally, what I wanted to do with self-managed super fund was actually to continue to develop. As you know, self-managed super fund has quite strict rules in terms of what you can and cannot do from a property investment perspective. And development is definitely one that you can't do it. So even to build a house, the only way that you can build a house in self-managed super fund, for those that probably not aware of, is if you buy something under the same contract. So probably going back to the concept of a house and land package, but it needs to be under the same contract. And there are companies now that actually specialize in just packaging that all up. Will charge a premium for you, but you can actually do that. However, what I was interested in doing in self-managed super fund, there is another way, and this is probably, don't take that as a financial advice because you probably need to have a chat with your accountant. But I believe there is a way that you can invest in a development through self-managed super fund by setting up a separate structure that.
Okay, let's not go too deep into self-managed super fund.
There is a way, but it is not easy, and I probably wasted about 6 months trying to go that path. And let's simplify that. Let's just go and buy properties that will give me what I want from day zero without having to go to the hassle of building. And then as I started to look into it, I realized that my key goals out of self-managed super fund was properties that were located in areas that had all the elements for high growth. So from a population perspective, from an economic standpoint, job diversification, all the things that would trigger capital growth over time. But it also needed to give me at least 8% yield because, as you know, the lending self-managed super fund, because of the limited recourse borrowing arrangement, you would pay a premium on the bank. So typically, you're probably paying an extra 1% on the top of what it would cost you to invest outside of super. So I wanted to get 8% just to cover all the expenses and try to have if not positively geared, a neutral portfolio that was growing in value. That was my objective with self-managed super fund. Found this 3-bedroom villa in Armadale, which is just probably on the back street from the train station. Bought it for $205. It needed a little bit of work. I probably did the bare minimum and just sort of fix up a couple of things that probably cost me about $10K in that first year just to replace a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't really running properly. But from the day one, like it was already giving me a good yield, but the rents, as you know, in WA just skyrocketed. And if you look at these days, a 3-bedroom place in Armadale, you're probably not gonna find something for less than $500 these days per week.
That's insane, though. 35% growth per annum. Like it's doubled in 2 years or 2 and a bit years.
3 years. 3 years. Yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. So that has probably been the best performing property in my whole portfolio. Like in 3 years, double value. But we know that Perth did nothing for the previous 15 years. Pretty much. So I just hope that the next 15 is not the same. But it has definitely done its thing in a very short period of time.
So the rental yield on there was 11%. That is ridiculous.
It's currently 11 at the purchase price. So, but
Yeah.
as I was saying, the rent could easily increase to 500 plus a week as the new lease sort of comes on in a few months. Sort of key advices, I should say, instead of advice. So I think, as we were saying earlier, I think building a team is probably one of the key things. As I said, broker is the top one there, but you need to make sure you have a good accountant. Solicitor, you probably end up dealing with a fair number of solicitors and conveyancers, not so much lawyers, should I say, conveyancer, because for each state, you probably need to have different license. So if you're buying different states, you may end up dealing with different conveyances, and solicitors. So just making sure that you get a good one. Property manager as well. So I have good and bad property managers, but once you have good property managers, you know how to benchmark them against each other. So once you have a good one, you know what to expect from a good one versus a not so good. So if it doesn't work, just move on to the next one, I guess. From a self-managed perspective, I did use a financial planner to help me to set it up. I no longer do because there is sort of costs associated with that. But I think at the beginning, it can help, especially because there are a lot of rules in self-managed performance. So at least you need to know what you need to know to make sure that you don't make a mistake and are paying thousands in fines to ATO.
Fines.
Fines are not fun. They're not fine at all.
Well, yeah, it's like tax. Is it a fine or is it tax? What is it?
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. I think that education component is definitely a must. You're never gonna know everything that needs to know about the property, and I've been sort of studying for over a decade now, and I can say I probably only scratch the surface because there is so much stuff that I don't know, and I still try to get my head around. So there is so many books and content that you can watch and read out there. You can pay for research. There's some amazing sort of research out there that you can consume. I went to so many seminars, and I think these days there is probably not as many as it used to have on the weekends. But I think there was a great way of not only to get access to content, but also to actually chat with people that are also interested in property and get to understand and know what people are doing and give you ideas what you could be looking at next steps, that type of stuff. And make sure that you have an action plan, set up your goals, make sure you take action because you can easily just get consumed by analysis paralysis. So just have a plan, try to execute it. It's
I like plan B. I like having a plan B. So what does that mean? Like, and how do you think about that? Because that's a bit of an interesting one.
Yeah, because like how many times I got stuck because of accessibility. So in that scenario, so for example, today if I'm purchasing my next property, I'm not only thinking about my next property, I'm actually about thinking what I would probably be doing the next one. So if I don't want to get stuck with serviceability again, I need to make sure that my next property improves my serviceability in a way that my subsequent property won't be impacted by the assessment of this one. So it's just having to think about one step ahead and try to balance that. So and by plan B also is make sure that you have a buffer in there, because I would say that majority of the community here has been impacted by the interest rate rises in the last 2-3 years from where it was to where we are now. I always have a decent buffer in there, and I try to aim to have probably at least sort of 6 months worth of expenses in cash sitting on my offset account, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like I don't have my own business, and you see a lot of the people that build their portfolio, they tend to have their own business, but I have a job, and if by any chance I lose that job, I want to make sure that I have enough buffer in there to allow me some time to get another job and that type of stuff. So
rather than being a forced seller.